I'm live. Oh, it's live. Thank you very much. Good evening. For those who don't know me, I'm Chris Jacobs. I'm the town and school district moderator. I'm going to silence my phone. I would hope that you would do the same. This is Candidates Night 2017. I'm going to start off with the selectmen positions because some of the school board positions, those people are not here yet. I would ask that everybody treat each other respectfully. Even though I voted for Donald Trump, I don't like Trump-type antics, if you will. Let's treat each other civilly. And the other thing I would ask is if people have questions that they've already prepared, you either have to holler them if you want to read them yourselves, or if you would like me to read them, this microphone, and that microphone will pick it up for the benefit of those who are going to watch this at home. Having said that, the ground rules are opening comments from each one of the candidates, about 2 to 3 minutes each, and then questions from the floor. Hopefully the question or questions is something that all of them can answer. And then when there's no more questions, I give them another 2 minutes to wrap up or say anything that they might have missed in their opening statement or something they might have otherwise thought of. Having said that, would you all rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would ask for the table Ryan Thibault, Mr. Larry Brown, and Mr. Thomas McDougall. Go ahead, Ryan. Anywhere you want to sit. If you don't mind, are you ready, prepared to speak? Okay. We'll start with you, Ryan.
All right. Good evening, everybody. First off, I would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. My name is Ryan Thibault. Many of you may know me as the guy who drives the antique cars, which is a hobby for me. Or now you may know me as the guy that put the large banner on his barn at the end of Route 75. So a little bit about myself and my background. I purchased my home in Milton in August of 2015. It was previously a Liberty homestead. I graduated from UNH with a degree in mechanical engineering. I'm currently a manufacturing engineer. I have been a regular attendee of the selectmen meetings. I decided to run for this position because I see a need for change and I want to help make a positive difference in the community. My approach to this is pretty simple. I think it all starts with changing the image of the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen needs to gain trust and respect from the townspeople. I don't think this is going to be an easy task. I think several things need to be done to accomplish this. I'm going to list off a few of them. I think transparency is a very important part. The board needs to be transparent. I think it's very important to focus on concerns and set aside your personal motivations and personal conflicts. I think they need to be taken right out of it and just focus on the problem and the concern at hand. Following and respecting laws and regulations is key. Unfortunately, mistakes are going to be made. We're all human. I think a key thing is to own up when a mistake is made, admit to it, use it as a lesson learned, move forward. Doing research is also key before making a decision and jump into a conclusion. I think that every problem and issue, you need to really look at your approach before you start. Once the board of selectmen gains the trust and respect in the community, I feel the real important problems will arise and they can be focused on and resolved as a team. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight and look forward to serving and working with everybody in the community. Thank you.
Exactly 2 minutes. Thank you.
He's an engineer, exactly.
Tom.
Oh, again, like Ryan said, thank you everybody for coming out to meet the candidates tonight. Something I didn't realize was that we all three met the unofficial requirements for this particular position, Board of Selectmen. We all three live on 125. We all three have facial hair. The outgoing selectman also lives on 125, got facial hair. And we've lived in town for roughly 7 years now. Like Ryan, I'm an electrical engineer by trade. I work down in Somersworth at what used to be GE. We bought our house roughly about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. When we did that, when we purchased rather than we're renting, we decided to get more involved in the town affairs, if you will. One of the things that I did, we started coming to the meetings. Shortly after we started coming to the meetings, I was one of 3 volunteers to run the recording equipment that the Board of Selectmen managed to get a grant for. So you might notice, and you don't recognize the front of my head, you notice the back of my head because I'm sitting at the computer usually at the Board of Selectmen meetings. Also been on the budget committee for the last 2 years, and between coming to the Board of Selectmen meetings, the various meetings I've recorded in the budget committee, there's been a few things that I've noticed that would be nice or that I would like to see us accomplish in town that lead to additional transparency, have the townspeople regain their trust and confidence in the board. These are figure out how to automatically publish some of the common town reports like expenditure reports, things like that. Also like to figure out how to implement some method of tracking issues that come before the board. This may end up being a whiteboard that you write down issues and mark them off as they come before the board. It might be something that's online that you could log in and see where somebody's complaining about the speed on Elm Street, how the selectman or whoever has started to approach and deal with handling that. Time and time again, you see people come to the board. We've addressed this. Oh, we're coming back 3 months later. This hasn't been addressed. Coming back 3 months later, hasn't been addressed. Some method of tracking, I think, will help keep everybody on track. Stuff falls behind through the cracks. Happens to me. Happens to all of us. Some method of keeping everybody honest, I think, would be something very useful. And again, thanks for coming out. There's a whole bunch of other stuff I'd like to accomplish. There's a couple of the big ones, and I think I've gone over my 2 minutes.
I said 2 to 3. We're 2.5. You're good. Mr. Brown.
This will be take one past the rest to the rear. Everybody can read together. It's on one page. Any typos? I really apologize. With a little bit of luck, you may see the top block in orange if I put out signs. Very simply, Larry Brown for selectman. Competence, courtesy, community. Here's what I've done, what I support, and what we can do to make our town work better. If you agree, vote for me March 14th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. Labor Day weekend, 1997. I was up on the ladder at the townhouse scraping paint. Jim Culverhouse at the grill. I came down. He gave me a burger. He said, "You can always do more." For 20 years, I've tried to do it. About a dozen community volunteers, committees, a state rep, the Stratford County delegation, and I still believe our town is worth that effort, and that's why I'm running. I say we are fortunate to have the staff and department heads who work for our town. We have their competence, their courtesy, and their good service. If you have a question, talk to them. That's what got the ball field, the playground. I support Article 16, kill the weeds, save the lake. Article 11 for boat ramp repair. 10 and 13 to support recreation, thank volunteers, and track public money. Selectmen's job is to serve agreeably to the rules and regulations of the New Hampshire Constitution. Town business is public business. It's not done on email, on the phone, or out on Facebook. Milton doesn't need that kind of reputation or potential liability, and that's why I decided to run. There are 6 goals. These are not hypothetical think about. These are things you can put into practice. Open access data for meetings, bids, contracts, budget costs. town email for selectmen, town voicemail inbox for selectmen, a task response tickler, simplest thing in the world, my 8.5 by 11 paper, who, what, when, outcome, 4 W's. You have impact and options assessments on agenda items. Why did we take this bid that wasn't the highest one? Bing, bing, bing. Put it out, put it on the town's site. Non-public session summaries, not just 91AC, 91A under personnel, under potential litigation, under consultation with lawyer. Give people a topic. Last one, and this is my favorite, long-term goal, and that is the bi-state byway covered bridge for Townhouse Road. Timber truss bridge construction was patented in 1830 in New Hampshire. Cost-effective, attractive, durable. It's a win-win for Milton and Lebanon. It's a great match for our restored townhouse. And you can check out the internet for covered bridge tourism in New Hampshire. If you want something that draws the community together, you've got it from John Catwick and the development of ball fields at the new town cemetery. And you know, you start the campaign and build community.
Thank you. That was actually 2 minutes to Larry, so thank you for being so brief. Questions from the audience?
We should start. Yeah, I have a different question first.
Pam had her hand up first, while you two were deciding who was going to read the first one. Go ahead, Pam.
How long have you lived in town, and also what have you done as far as municipal government?
Ryan?
I moved to town in August of 2015.
2015.
Yep.
And what have you done as far as municipal government?
I basically just attended the selecting meetings. I've never been in an actual part of the government.
Tom?
We moved here in May of 2010, and I've been on the budget committee for the last 2 years, and like I mentioned, since they've had the recording equipment, I've been involved with running the recording equipment.
Larry?
2 minutes, Larry.
Thank you.
May 19th, 1995, June 10th or 12th, I was a runner for the Farm Museum auction. Suzanne and I ran it for 2 years, and here's a list. Cemetery trustee, Conservation Commission, Library trustee, ZBA, Planning Board, Budget Committee, New Hampshire Farm Museum. I was trustee, vice president. I was the chair of the Stratford Regional Planning Commission, Stratford County Executive Committee and County Delegation, a 3-term state rep, townhouse, library, playground, and Friends of Newton volunteer. Served on 3 school committees, State Board of Manufactured Housing, and I was for 3 glorious months the last sewer commissioner Milton ever needed.
Good ending.
Well, Pam's second question was my first, but I have more.
Of course, of course.
Yes, of course. Milton residents have strongly supported conservation and the Conservation Commission in town. You guys are relatively new here, so you may not be aware of all the things that are going on, but the town's conservation fund is funded by 50% of the land use change tax exclusively, which has been basically zero for many years now. So it was a good try, but it's not a regular source. And the conservation fund ends up being used for expenses which are planning related and benefit the town, such as the conversion of the town's tax maps into digital form, which is pretty standard around the state, but we've never gotten to. So we in the Conservation Commission are paying for it because we think it's really important. At any rate, there are expenses which the Conservation Commission has that are regular and predictable, such as the expenses for monitoring the town's conservation properties, which is required by law. There are other expenses which are not regular and which cannot be, you can expect that they will happen on some basis, but you cannot predict when. And those include things which relate to violations of the conservation easements and other forms of conservation, which the town then has to expend money to defend and possibly to fix. So, my question now relates to funding these efforts, which are of value, great value to the town. The usual way of supporting this sort of thing is with a capital reserve fund, which is funded at a relatively low amount every year, but which then accumulates so that you have the money when you need it. So I have two that I propose. Would you support, capital reserve fund for yearly monitoring of town conservation lands, which is required by law and currently costs about $2,500 per year? And would you support a capital reserve fund for expenses which relate to violations on conservation property, including legal action and restoration of damaged areas? Now, I should note that in the 2017 budget, for the first time, we have a line item for $2,500, which is essentially this. But because it's a budgetary line item, the money cannot accumulate. So it's the wrong form of fund. We need it to be a capital reserve fund that accumulates so that we have it when we need it. So my question to each of you is, would you support these two capital reserve funds?
You want to take a swing at it, Ron?
Sure. So with the limited information I have, which I'm going off what you just told me honestly, it seems like that is a reasonable thing to ask for. However, before I would say I would 100% support it, I would want to do more research and look at the pros and cons of doing that and how it's currently put in there and what you're proposing to see what the differences are and the pros and cons of it. Either direction.
Tom?
Short answer, yes. I would second what Ryan said. Based on what you just said, it seems like the town's got regular expenses. You should budget for these regular expenses. It would, to determine the correct, or the best method to support the town and the conservation committee, I'd have to look into it. I can't tell you unequivocally, yes, you have my absolute 100% support based on a 5-minute description of what you just said. But on the surface of it, yes. But again, further investigation would have to be done. Driven by data. Engineer, you get driven by data.
Mr. Brown?
I wrote this out before Tom got to his punchline. This is exactly why you don't come to an agenda item, the selectmen, without your data and background supporting information in place. Conservation Commission. Marion Trafton is not here. She deserves credit. She tried to keep it alive back in the late 90s. I came on as Conservation Commission. The smartest thing I did was get Steve Panish on board, bring Cynthia in. We had a great deal of trouble on the planning board when we had conservation easements set in place and no way to detail them and no way to enforce them. What Steve is talking to is the outcome of that process. I supported the work of the Conservation Commission back then. I support it now. The $2,500 has to be evaluated compared to what funds are already coming in from the change of use monies and what the impact of bi-state cooperation will be on the curse of the European naiad, which is a lovely name for a vicious weed.
All right. Virginia, did you have a question specific?
I do, actually, and Larry just gave me a great transition. Because my question for the candidates, each of you, is what is your plan in the next 3 years of your term as on the select board for the town to deal with this crisis of European naiad, which may devastate the Milton Three Ponds, turning it into a mass of weed on the surface, or even people have compared it to a pine grove. So what would your plan be? I hope you've thought about it in advance. This is an important issue for the town.
Tom, do you want to take that one first?
I would pursue attacking it as aggressively as the town can afford to. Because from everything that I've heard and read about it, it's, if you allow it to get well established and then try to attack it, it's, I don't want to say a hopeless cause, but you're fighting an uphill battle. Whereas now we've got a relatively small infestation, is my understanding, compared to the amount of water that we have in Milton. And now with aggressive treatment, which unfortunately it sounds like last year, had we been able to put herbicide down, we could have really made a dent in it. We couldn't do that, had to use mechanical means and suction to, is my understanding, to eradicate it. Didn't work as well as maybe had hoped. Hopefully this year with the herbicides and continuing treatment like that to attack it, like I said, as aggressively as we can afford to, in cooperation with our neighbors to the east.
Okay. Larry, Ryan, here, you want to respond? Larry kind of got a jump up on NIAID first, so. Go ahead, Mr. Brown. Ryan is yielding to wisdom.
This is going to shock you. For 3 years as selectman, the first thing to do is talk less. Personally,
Wait a minute.
You repeat that again.
into the camera, talk less. But seriously, talk less, advocate more, jawbone with Lebanon. We have a great entree into Lebanon through John Catwick and other cemeteries trustees when I was one, for getting contacts, and we are not the enemy and we are not the strangers. We share the lake with Lebanon. We have Mike Bolio, who sees the selectmen and works with that township every day. That's a way to build cooperation. We need to find out what our $10,000 is going to buy, what the nominal $5,000 to $7,000 that the Three Ponds Protected Association can contribute, and what Lebanon may do when they have their town meeting in May. If I remember, the name of the herbicide of trade name is Reward.
Yes.
Which has the advantage of having a markedly short residual life, which is basically specific to the task at hand and does minimal collateral damage and dissipates without terror and problems to downstream communities like Somersworth, who use the Salmon Falls for drinking water. And the quick answer would be what I already said, which is kill the weeds, save the lake. We're looking at recreational uses across the entire lake. We're looking at the economic engine that is driving the economy of the town. If you lose lakefront taxes, you lose tremendous revenues that supports community and support community services.
Ryan.
Right? I agree that that's definitely a major concern of the town, and we need to stay above the curve. We do not want to let that invade the lake to a point where it's going to be extremely costly to get rid of it. So I definitely support keeping on top of this. I think it's going to have to be almost evaluated every year, because from what I understand, we don't really have a clear understanding of how quick it's going to grow. And after this herbicide treatment, we're not sure how effective it's going to be. It sounds like it's going to be very effective. But we definitely, I feel it would be more cost effective to put the money up now before it really spreads, and take care of it today instead of down the road when it may have maybe going too far and we're gonna start losing tax revenue from it. So I think it's key to continue to put money aside to protect the lake.
Thank you.
Other questions?
For the engineers, what kind of unique perspective does your background bring to this type of position?
Right?
So yes, I'm an engineer. However, I'm also very hands-on. Theory's part of it, but I think hands-on is just as important. I'm not afraid to go after a problem and roll my sleeves up and get right into it. So I think from I bring to the table not only the theory side of it, but also the hands-on experience side of things.
Thomas?
As mentioned before, engineers are typically driven by data. We don't like making decisions without knowing the details that go into making said decisions. As like Brian, I'm a hands-on engineer. I'm not somebody that sits up at his desk and just writes paper all the time. Half my time spent in the lab, putting circuits together, tearing circuits apart, blowing stuff up. That's part of the fun part of the job. But it's the perspective of being able to not only look at the fine details of how something might, the intricate details of how something works, but in my case, being able to step back and say, okay, this device that I'm working on, how can we scale its operation to perhaps millions of points? And so being able to look at both the micro and the macro scale when dealing with an issue, whether it be the European NIAD or working on a meter that's going to go in somebody's house. It's bringing that perspective. I think is what's kind of unique in an engineer's background.
Great answer, guys. Thank you.
You want junior engineer want to take a crack at that?
He's gonna get his engineer hat.
Absolutely. You have no idea. I've been laying in wait for this one. And that is, this is brief show and tell. Cat loves this one. Once the batteries go out, it's useless.
The cat or that?
This came into the Farm Museum. It's about 150 years old. This is a plumb bob. One reason, it's lead, plumb. Second, it plummets. Somebody made this by hand at their farm back before you lived in the country and had money. Now you can live in the country and have money. They didn't. That's how they worked. This is 100 years old. It's my father's line level, what a brand new civil engineer got, patented in September of 1921. Great-grandfather. 24 inches. 24 inches is the ISO 9000 limit amount of error you can have in 150 miles. 24 inches. That's engineering. What we're dealing with is measuring things for people. And you can go for Sigma 6, you can go for DMAC, you can go for MBO, Performance Appraisal Review, you can go for OTB, QC, ABC, Open Loop, Closed Loop, Team Management. You can do participation management. You can do dedicated management. All you need are 4 questions. What do we have? What does it mean? What do we do? And then you go back to the top. What do we have? Think of it. 4 things. What do we have? What does it mean? What do we do? What do we have? Close the circle, and there's your process for management. Doesn't matter what department you're talking about. You deal with competent people. You deal with measurement over time.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So Joe,
Mr.
first
Martin.
of all, thanks so much for being here this evening. So as a longtime resident of Milton, one of the questions that I have is we continuously see a large increase in taxes being put on the homeowners themselves. So I would ask each one of you, what is your vision to actually grow business and economic development within Milton and relieve some of the tax burden that we are seeing as homeowners overall?
Anyone? Volunteers? Larry's still writing his thoughts. Tom?
One of the roles I see the selectman as being sort of the, I don't want to say the face of the town, but the people that can go out and do their part to promote things like the 2 exits that we have. We have exit 18, we have exit 17 in Milton. There is currently a plan, I believe, on exit 17 requiring some state input to move some intersections around. That's a development that would at least bring traffic off of 16 in the vicinity of Milton. Representing the people that want to bring businesses into town at the state level as best we can. My understanding with the Rays Marina is it was a state issue that is requiring sidewalks and helping represent the owners of the properties when they go to talk to the state. Trying to bring the Milton perspective and not say just somebody that wants to put in a restaurant. This is helping catalyze the downtown area of Milton and bring businesses in, acting as the sort of the face of Milton, the presence to go out and do what we can to solicit and to represent the people at the various outside agencies that have to be interacted with. When you're doing things on 125, which is a state highway, when you're doing things at 75 and 16, which are state-controlled intersections, Milton doesn't really have a whole lot of. We can't just go move an intersection there. That's the state. We'd have to deal with the state to find out what do we have to do. How do we have to work with the developer to change that? And again, getting back to my not letting things fall through the cracks. When somebody comes to the board and says, I would like to do this, what do I have to do? The board should follow up. It is the board's job to not let things fall through the cracks. When somebody comes and says, I'd like to put a restaurant at the new fire station, it is the board's job to follow up. Or I'm sorry, not new fire station, the old fire station. It's the board's job to make sure that the steps that have to be done don't drop through the cracks. Don't, because of some issue that might be happening down at the new fire station, they don't let months go by before they get back to the person that approached them about bringing this to town. Really staying on top of things, keeping involved with the development that approaches them, and prodding when they have to.
Fine.
Right. I think that, first off, the Board of Selectmen is kind of the face of the town, especially when new business is coming in. So I think it's very important that the board works together as a group, and I also think it's very important that the board sends an image not only to the community, but to anybody that comes in front of them, that they're here for the town, they're here supporting the town, and they have everybody behind them. I'm not trying to go after anybody individually or the current board, but I think that there has been some issues that have caused the board to lose some respect and trust in the community. So I think that needs to be gained first, so then when somebody that wants to start a business comes to the board, they see that we have a strong board of selectmen that's working together and the community's behind them. I think for the time being, it's key to keep the taxes at the current rate. Ideally, like to go down. Definitely don't want to go in the upward direction, but I think we need to maintain the current tax rate to straighten out some other issues first, so we can really focus on these other problems.
Mr. Brown.
For every complicated question, there is a clear, direct answer that has a good chance of being incomplete. We are never going to beat Route 11. There is just too much traffic, too much industrial and commercial space, flat land, infrastructure, sewer, water, expanded natural gas going out on that route to compete. We have the Economic Development Committee, Bob Bordeaux, Cubby, Avery, what's his first name? I just lost it. Chris? It is Justin, okay. Justin Avery, and for a good time, Mike Bolio, working on that. The problem is to get manufacturing/industrial users that can provide their own sewer and water that are not intensive for those uses and still have a product that they can sell. I think we've done a great thing in getting access to the Solar 2 project for what used to be the ball field. I don't want to call it a brownfield site for the Lockhart property. That will reduce costs to the town. We are looking at a possible $60,000 increase to the operating costs of the town if the veterans credit goes through as presented. $60,000 per year is 1.5% of the operating budget of $4 million. If you accept that, then you accept your taxes going up, nothing else happening. Right now, the police department can explain to us very clearly what the costs of retirement are and how that affects the local budget. Since in 1977, the state was taking 35% of retirement costs as its obligation to the social contract of the state. That dropped in about 2007. That dropped. It's